So welcome to the fermenting workshop at the Upskilling Expo. My name's Anastasia, and I am a holistic nutritionist and a yoga teacher. And fermenting is something that I do all the time because I feel it's a really important element of a healthy diet, and I'll explain to you why in this workshop. I'm going to be showing you how to make fermented dill pickles. So this is the way people used to make dill pickles before heat canning became in fashion. And we're also going to make dill green beans. So it's basically the exact same way you make dill pickles, but use green beans. But before I start actually preserving and fermenting the vegetables, I just want to give you a little bit of information about why and how it's good for you and the history of fermenting, very briefly. Basically, fermenting is something that, well, you guys know especially because you're getting into the cidery business, but fermenting is something that we consume so many foods already that are fermented, you may not even really realize how many you do consume from what you buy in the store. It includes cheese, beer, wine, all kinds of stuff. So the beauty of doing it at home is that you can preserve stuff without needing heat, like energy. And in fact, I don't even have a knife here, which I probably should have brought one, but I really don't even need it to do this. It's a very simple process. And the other thing that I really love about lacto-fermenting is that you don't need a lot of product to make a batch. And I don't know if any of you guys garden, but you know when you're going out to the garden to harvest that day, sometimes you're just getting a little bit, like especially beans, they don't come all in one day. Unless, well, if you have like 100 plants, you'll get like a huge bowl. But generally in a family farm, you're just gonna have like a handful sometimes of beans. And that's the perfect amount to make one jar, which I love. Because usually canning and preserving, you know, it's like a full day production and it's a big deal, but this is very simple and easy. So some of the practical benefits of lacto-fermenting, especially historically, like preservation was a big deal because they didn't have electricity or refrigeration. So they had to come up with ways of saving the harvest that would last through the winter when there weren't crops to eat. So for example, even milk, cheese was another example of a product that's fermented, I said, but also yogurt. And that's because milk doesn't last very long when it's fresh. I didn't we have goats and we started milking them, and you know, milk is really, really fresh, max 5 days, and then it sours. And you can still use it like to make pancakes or for baking and stuff like that, but as a fresh, drinkable, delicious food, it doesn't have a long shelf life. So that's why they started making cheese, because cheese lasts all winter, and in fact, it gets better as it ages. So it's a practical thing to do. The other thing is flavor. I mean, the flavor of fermented foods, they're very compelling, and you know, they make things taste really good, and they're attractive to a lot of people. You know, like some people really like stinky cheese because you know, it's just this, just adds that, it's like an umami flavor. You know, it's just that thing you can't quite identify, but it's very delicious. Salamis, meats, that's another big thing that used to be preserved, cured, because you know, if you don't have a freezer or refrigeration, you've got to find ways of making the food last. And my favorite part about lacto-fermenting are the health benefits. I'm sure you've all heard about probiotics these days. Everyone's taking acidophilus capsules and everything. Well, the beauty of lacto-fermented foods is that they provide a wealth of probiotics into your system. And I think when you're getting your nutrients and these sorts of important aspects of a healthy diet through your food, I think they become much more bioavailable. It means your body can incorporate them much better than if you're taking them in a pill form. And you're guaranteed of the quality. Like, you don't actually know if that product you're buying in a capsule is still alive or not. And has it been kept in a fridge from factory to the store to your house the entire time? Like, you don't really know. And it's expensive. Probiotics are crazy expensive, so I prefer getting those sorts of things from my food. And the other amazing thing about fermenting and sourdough and lacto-fermentation is that it helps to detoxify certain elements that are found in foods that you normally wouldn't be able to get rid of, or your body can't handle it. For example, grains contain anti-nutrients and something called phytic acid. And when you ferment it through sourdough fermentation, it actually neutralizes the phytic acid, so then you're better able to absorb the nutrients that are found in that food. Or, for example, like chard or spinach have oxalic acid, and if you were to do a process of fermentation, it would neutralize those as well. And there's oftentimes questions about, well, is it a safe process? Because, you know, people, I think we've become really frightened of bacteria. We've a culture of, you know, disinfect everything, and we think that in order to be healthy, we need a sterile environment. When in fact, the tides are turning and we're discovering that in fact, bacteria play very important roles in the world, and especially for human beings. And they actually help us, they play a huge part in digestion in the body. And we wouldn't be able to live without bacteria. And this is not like canning. Canning, you know, you have to sterilize your jars because you don't want bacteria in there, because that's what's going to cause botulism and all sorts of other problems. But with fermentation, you actually, what you're doing is, with the addition of salt to the vegetables, there's bacteria on the vegetables, especially ones that grow close to the ground, and they actually start to give off lactic acid, and it creates a very acidic environment within here, so nothing can live in here, actually in the liquid. On the surface, if the oxygen hits it, then you might find a little bit of mold, which is still fine. You just scoop it off, and the inside is still okay. But in a canned product, like heat canning, you can't have anything in there. And the other great thing is, for example, say if vegetables are contaminated, like I don't know if you guys have heard about the latest cyclospora outbreak. I think my family, my son has it. It's food that's imported. What can happen here too, I'm sure, but there's an outbreak right now going on of food being contaminated with a cyclospora bacteria, and that's causing vomiting and diarrhea and that sort of thing. And people are way more likely to get contaminated from a raw vegetable than they are. You will not get contaminated from a pickled one, because even if that's on there, the lactic acid, the acidic medium, you know, what's in there is going to destroy that. So it actually makes your food safer. So I think I've said enough about the background, unless you have a question that's coming to the top of your head that you need to ask. We'll just move on to the next process. Okay, so I was actually going to, yeah, we'll just use this jar. So you can use bigger jars. I'm just showing this is what most people have. Even if you don't can, someone's probably given you something, so you'll have one of these lying around your house. And the first one I'll make is dill pickles. So what you need, okay, I have to admit the trickiest thing to find for making dill pickles is the dill. Fresh dill, unless you grow your own. Some farmers markets will have it, but I recommend you grow your own because they are kind of hard to source. So you put that in. And see, my knife would have come in handy for cleaning my garlic, but I think so. Whole garlic, and if you like lots of garlic, just put a few cloves in. And I like to add a few mustard seeds. I gotta be honest, I don't usually measure. Just a few will work. But the salt you do have to measure. And if you like spicy, you could throw in a few chilies in there too. And you throw in your cucumbers. You could slice them too. If you're gonna slice them, I generally recommend slicing them lengthwise, because if they're circles, they'll float to the top, and then you're more likely to get mold if something is on top of the, above the water. So if I was really adventurous, I could fit more in here. So we have water. I generally use water from my tap at home, which is well water, and it's not chlorinated. I forgot to bring some, so I'm using this. I hope the chlorine doesn't interfere with the process. I'll let you know. I haven't had to worry about that in a while. Okay, so for every cup of water, for every 2 cups of water, you want 1 tablespoon of salt. This is 4 cups, so I'm going to put 2 tablespoons. And you stir it. This is all very high tech. I know it's you're not going to believe you came to a workshop to see this. I love it. It's so quick. All right, and then pour it on. So as you can see, I have made sure that the water is above the cucumber And that is very important. And that's it. Now, they're going to take a couple of days, 2 to 3 days, and I usually just put them on top of my refrigerator, and they start to turn more of a dark green color. I mean, these are a different vegetable, but it's just, they look the same once at this stage. And it gets cloudy, and every now and then, you might want to just pop the lid a little bit just to get the gas escape, let it escape. And then if you have a cold room, you can keep them in your cold room, which is ideal because then you're not filling up your refrigerator and you don't have to worry about electricity. I don't have one, so I usually keep them in the fridge and enjoy them all fall and all winter. And that's the other thing. It's a great way to get probiotics into your kids because like my kids don't swallow pills and they'll eat yogurt and stuff, but
it has to be refrigerated or it has to cool.
Yeah.
So you leave it out for 2 to 3 days and then it has to either be in the
cold storage.
Or...
Yeah. Now, I don't have a lot of experience storing them in cold storage because, like I said, I don't have cold storage. But from what I read and what I've researched, it works great. Sauerkraut, and you do it in a big crock, which a lot of people do. You would leave it in your cold storage, making sure it's submerged under the liquid because that's what keeps it from going bad. And then when you want to take some, you scoop it out, put it in a jar, leave it in your fridge so you get easy access to it, and then repack it properly and submerge it and make sure. Because the longer it ages, especially sauerkraut, like it just keeps getting more complex and softer. And
you guys want to know the price on this? Like in the city, I pay $45 for 4 liters of kimchi.
Oh yeah, I know.
So it's like about it's over $10 a liter.
Well, okay, I'm very happy to see. I'm happy to see people getting into it and making it for other people. But yeah, like price-wise, there's no beating making it yourself at home. It's so cheap, especially if you're growing your own vegetables. Yep, and they also sell fancy fermenting vessels that have an airlock. You know, like when you guys must know this. Wine and beer making, you know those airlocks? You can buy a jar that has that on top, and then you never have to open it, and it releases the bubbles, and there's less a chance of it getting mold. But then you're, you know, like, you want to keep it cheap, you just don't really need it. Okay, so really quickly, let's just finish these off. And, you know, you just fit as many as you can in there.
Does it matter how much is in? Like, can you just put one, like half fill that? It doesn't have to be
the only thing is you want the entire jar filled with liquid.
Okay.
Doesn't matter how much stuff's in it. But.
Shouldn't be much bigger.
All right. So like I said, 2 tablespoons for 4 cups. Oh, and salt. I prefer unrefined sea salt because it's the best. Better for your body. It's not, I could go on and on about salt, but do yourself a favor and invest in good salt because there's nothing to be afraid of with salt if you're using good quality salt that has all the minerals still in it. Even sea salt that's sold in the stores that's free-flowing, like kind of bulk barn, that looks like regular table salt, that's not the kind you want. You want the stuff that's kind of sticky together, sticks together. And sometimes it's gray color, and it's usually from France. That's the kind you want. Okay, so there we go. 2 done. Let's try it. Okay. You're welcome. So I get this.
Way better.
No. Yeah. Let me see. Nice.
Not me.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Come on. Yeah.